I found a whistleblower. A geologist named Dr. Sarah Chen.
She showed me the truth.
Before we start, hit subscribe if you want more stories like this. Drop a like and comment where you're watching from. Let's get into it. My name is Jake Morrison, and in 1982, I was a Texas Ranger based out of Midland. 15 years on the job. I'd worked everything from cattle rustling to cartel murders to serial killers crossing state lines. Seen things that would make most people quit law enforcement. Thought I'd seen it all. I was wrong. It was August 15th when I got the call from Austin. Captain Rodriguez on the line, voice tight with something I couldn't quite identify. Not quite anger, not quite fear. Something in between. Morrison, we need you in Pecos County, Apex Oil Company rig, Delta 7. They've had 12 worker deaths in the last 3 weeks. 12 industrial accidents? That's what the company's saying. OSHA's been out there twice, state inspectors 3 times. Everyone's calling them accidents. But the workers are saying something else. What are they saying? That it's murder. That someone or something is killing them. That the rig is cursed. Half the crew's walked off. The other half's too scared to work but too broke to quit. And Apex is threatening to sue anyone who talks to the press. Why are we involved? This sounds like OSHA jurisdiction. Because the victims' families are demanding a criminal investigation. Because the accidents don't add up. And because Apex has enough lawyers and political connections to bury this if we don't move fast. I need you out there today, full authority. Find out what's really happening. I packed a bag and drove west. 4 hours from Midland to the rig site. The landscape got emptier with every mile. Flat desert stretching to the horizon. Pump jacks dotting the landscape like mechanical birds drinking from the earth. This was oil country. The Permian Basin. The richest oil field in America and maybe the world. The Delta 7 rig was 40 miles from the nearest town. End of a dirt road that turned to dust under my tires. I could see it from 5 miles away. The derrick rising 200 feet into the August sky. Equipment scattered around it like toys. Living quarters and office trailers forming a small compound. 3 dozen trucks and vehicles parked in rough rows. And over everything, a sense of wrongness I couldn't quite name. I pulled up to the gate. A security guard stepped out of a small booth. Young guy, maybe 25, with the hard look of someone who'd been in the sun too long. Help you? I showed my badge. Texas Ranger Jake Morrison. I'm here to investigate the deaths. His face changed. Something like relief mixed with fear. You're finally here. Thank God. Maybe now someone will actually listen. Listen to what? That this place is killing people. That we need to shut down and get the hell out before more of us die. Before I could respond, a black Cadillac pulled up behind me. 2 men got out. Expensive suits completely wrong for a drilling site. The kind of lawyers who bill by the minute and win by intimidation. The older one approached. Tall, silver hair, practiced smile that didn't reach his eyes. Ranger Morrison. I'm Jake Reeves, legal counsel for Apex Oil. We weren't notified you'd be arriving today. I don't need to notify you. This is a criminal investigation. With all due respect, Ranger, there is no crime here. We've had a series of tragic industrial accidents. Terrible, yes, but accidents nonetheless. OSHA has reviewed our safety protocols and found them adequate. 12 deaths in 3 weeks isn't adequate safety protocols, Mr. Reeves. That's either criminal negligence or something worse. His smile tightened. I'm sure you'll find our cooperation complete. However, I must insist that all interviews with personnel be conducted in the presence of company legal representation. I'll conduct interviews however I see fit. This is Texas, not a corporate boardroom. Now get out of my way. I walked past him toward the main office trailer. Behind me, I heard him speaking quietly into a phone, calling someone, reporting my arrival, already trying to control the narrative. Inside the trailer, I met the rig supervisor, Frank Hutchins, 55 years old, weathered face, hands scarred from 30 years in the oil fields. He looked exhausted, looked like he hadn't slept in days. Ranger Morrison. He shook my hand. His grip was weak. Thank you for coming. I've been begging the company to shut us down, but they won't listen. Tell me about the deaths. He pulled out a folder, thick with papers. 12 names, 12 men, ages ranging from 22 to 58. Started 3 weeks ago. Carlos Mendoza. Fell into the mud pit, drowned before we could pull him out. Company ruled it accidental. Said he must have slipped. But you don't think so? Hutchins shook his head. Carlos had 20 years' experience. He didn't slip. And he fell at exactly 3:17 a.m. We'd just hit depth. What depth? 8,547 feet. That's when Carlos died. Within an hour of hitting that depth. I wrote it down. What about the others? Hutchins flipped through the papers. David Torres, 3 days later, crushed by drill pipe. Happened at 2:45 a.m., 4 hours after we hit depth again. Different well, same depth, 8,547 feet. He continued. 12 deaths. 12 different wells across the Delta 7 site. But every single death happened within 24 hours of drilling to exactly 8,547 feet. That's specific. Too specific to be coincidence, Ranger. I've been drilling for 30 years. I've seen accidents. This isn't accidents, this is something else. What do the workers think? They think we're drilling into something we shouldn't. That there's something down there. Something that kills anyone who disturbs it. You believe that? Hutchins looked out the window at the rig, at the derrick towering against the sky. I've seen things I can't explain, heard things, felt things. Yeah, Ranger. I believe something's down there, and I believe it's angry. I spent the next few hours interviewing workers, the ones who hadn't quit. 23 men still on site, all of them scared, all of them with the same story. Deaths at 8,547 feet. Every time, like clockwork. Jose Garcia, a roughneck with 15 years' experience. It's like the earth is hungry, man, like we're feeding it. 1 man per well, that's the price. Tommy Bishop, a driller. I've worked rigs from Alaska to the Gulf. Never seen anything like this. The company knows, they have to know. But they keep drilling. Jake Morrison, a geologist. I've analyzed the rock samples from 8,547 feet. There's nothing unusual geologically, but there's something else, something I can't measure. A presence, a wrongness. By evening, I was convinced. These weren't accidents, couldn't be accidents. The pattern was too perfect, too consistent. But what was it? Murder? Sabotage? Or something worse? At 9 p.m., Frank Hutchins found me in the office trailer. Ranger, we're about to spud a new well. Should hit 8,547 feet around midnight. Thought you might want to observe. I followed him out to the active drilling site. The rig was lit up like a small city. Generators roaring. Drill bits spinning. Mud pumps running. 24 men working the floor. The noise was incredible. The heat even worse. August in West Texas. Still 90 degrees at night. The metal was hot to touch. How deep are we now? I shouted over the noise. Hutchins checked a gauge. 8,420 feet. Another 30 minutes and we'll hit depth. I watched the operation. The drill bit was miles underground. 3 miles. The hole was so deep that it took minutes for the drill string to make one complete rotation. The mud coming up was dark, almost black, and it smelled wrong, like sulfur mixed with something organic, something rotten. 8,500 feet, Hutchins called out. The crew was tense. I could see it in their movements, in the way they kept glancing at each other, in how they positioned themselves near the exits. 8,530 feet. The drill bit was slowing. Hutchins frowned. We're hitting resistance. There's something down there. Something hard. What kind of rock? Not rock, something else. The bit's barely penetrating. 8,540 feet. One of the workers, a young kid maybe 20 years old, dropped his tools and backed away from the drill floor. I can't do this. I can't be here when we hit it. Get back to work, Hutchins ordered. No, sir. I got a family. I'm not dying for Apex oil. He ran. Just turned and ran toward the parking area. 3 other workers followed him. Hutchins didn't try to stop them. Can't say I blame them. 8,545 feet. The temperature dropped. I noticed it immediately. One moment it was 90 degrees. The next it was cold. My breath came out in clouds. Frost formed on the metal railings. What the hell? I said. 8,547 feet, Hutchins announced. His voice was shaking. The drill bit broke through. I felt it more than saw it. Like a pressure releasing, like something had been holding the bit back and suddenly let go. The rig shuddered. The drill string dropped 3 feet all at once. And from the hole came a sound. Not mechanical, not geological, something else, something alive. A scream, low and deep and impossibly loud, coming from 3 miles underground. The workers scattered, running for their lives. Some jumped off the drill floor, others climbed down the ladders. Within seconds, the only people left were me and Hutchins. We need to shut it down, Hutchins said. He was moving toward the controls. Then I saw him, standing at the edge of the drill floor. A worker I didn't recognize, wearing coveralls and a hard hat, just standing there, perfectly still, looking down at the hole. "Hey!" I shouted. "Get away from there!" He didn't move, didn't respond, just stood there. I walked toward him. Hutchins grabbed my arm. "Don't. That's how they all look, right before." "Before what? Before they die?" I shook him off and approached the worker. As I got closer, I could see his face. Young guy, maybe 30, but his eyes were wrong. Empty, like he was sleepwalking. "Son, you need to step back from the edge." He turned to look at me. When he spoke, his voice was flat, emotionless. "It's calling me. Can't you hear it? It needs to be fed." "What needs to be fed?" "What we woke up, what we drilled into. It's so hungry. Been hungry for so long." He took a step toward the hole. I lunged forward, grabbed his arm, tried to pull him back. He was stronger than he should have been. Fought me. Eyes still empty. Still looking at the hole. "It needs to be fed," he repeated. "1 per well. That's the deal. That's always been the deal." "What deal? Who made a deal?" He smiled. It wasn't his smile. Wasn't human. The company. 40 years ago. Blood for oil. 1 life per well. The oil never runs dry as long as we keep feeding it. Then he wrenched free of my grip and jumped. Fell into the rotating drill mechanism. The bit caught him, pulled him down. He didn't scream, didn't fight. Just let it take him. Within seconds he was gone. Disappeared down the hole. 3 miles down into the earth. I stood there, frozen, covered in his blood, staring at the hole that had just consumed a man. Hutchins shut down the drill. Hit the emergency stop. The rig went silent. In that silence I heard it. From deep underground, from 8,547 feet down. A sound like satisfaction, like hunger being fed. That's 13, Hutchins said quietly. 13 deaths, all at 8,547 feet. I looked at him. His face was gray. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 seconds. What did he mean about a deal? I asked. What deal? Hutchins wouldn't meet my eyes. You need to talk to the old-timers, the ones who were here when Apex started drilling the Permian Basin. They know. They've always known. He walked away, left me standing on the blood-soaked drill floor, looking down into a hole that went 3 miles into the earth. A hole that contained something hungry, something that had just been fed, and I was beginning to realize that these deaths weren't accidents. They were sacrifices. I didn't sleep that night. Sat in my truck going through every piece of evidence I could gather. Death certificates, accident reports, OSHA investigations, company documents that Hutchins had quietly copied for me. 13 deaths now, all at Delta 7 rig. All within 24 hours of hitting 8,547 feet. But that's not what kept me awake. What kept me awake was the worker's last words. That's always been the deal. Like this had been happening for longer than 3 weeks. Longer than just this rig. At dawn, I drove into Pecos. Small town, 3,000 people, economy entirely dependent on oil. I found the county records office and started digging. Apex Oil had been drilling in the Permian Basin since 1941. 41 years. Hundreds of wells across West Texas. And I started pulling death certificates. It took me 6 hours to find the pattern. Delta 2 rig. Worker named James Sullivan fell into drill mechanism. Depth at time of death. 8,547 feet. Delta 5 rig. Worker crushed by falling equipment. Depth 8,547 feet. Delta 3 rig. Worker drowned in mud pit. Depth 8,547 feet. On and on. 1 or 2 deaths per year. Every single one at exactly the same depth. For 40 years. I called Rodriguez from a payphone outside the records office. Captain, this goes back to 1941. Apex has been having deaths at this specific depth for 4 decades. How many total? I did the math in my head. At least 60, maybe more. All ruled accidental, all covered up. Jesus Christ. Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. Morrison, you need to be careful. Apex Oil has serious political connections. Governor's office, state legislature. If they've been covering this up for 40 years, they won't let one Texas Ranger expose it. I'm not stopping, Captain. I'm not asking you to stop. I'm telling you to watch your back. I spent the rest of the day interviewing old-timers, retired oil workers who'd been in the Permian Basin since the 40s. Most wouldn't talk. Too scared, too bought off. But I found one who would. His name was Earl Cooper, 83 years old, worked for Apex from 1941 to 1975, knew everything. We sat on his porch in the late afternoon heat. He drank whiskey straight from the bottle and told me things that should have been impossible. I was there when they found it, he said. 1941. First well Apex ever drilled in the basin. Hit 8,547 feet and broke through into something. A chamber, hollow space 3 miles underground. Shouldn't exist. Geologically impossible. What was in the chamber? Earl took a long drink. Something old. Something that had been sealed down there for thousands of years. Maybe millions. We didn't know what it was. Still don't, but it was alive. Aware. And it was hungry. What happened? First worker died within hours. Fell into the drill hole, then another, then another. 3 deaths in 2 days. Company was going to abandon the well. Too dangerous. But they didn't abandon it. No. Earl's hands were shaking. Because on the third day, the well started producing. Oil like they'd never seen. Pure, clean. Flowing so fast they couldn't cap it. Millions of barrels. More oil than any well in Texas history. The thing in the chamber, it was producing the oil, trading it. Earl looked at me with eyes that had seen too much. Blood for oil. That's the deal. 1 death per well drilled to 8,547 feet. 1 life sacrificed. In exchange, the well produces for decades, never runs dry, never needs maintenance, just keeps pumping oil. Someone made this deal? Officially? The company, the founders. They met with it, went down into the chamber somehow, negotiated. And they've been honoring the deal ever since. 1 sacrifice per well. They call them accidents, but they're not. They're offerings. How many wells has Apex drilled to that depth? Hundreds, all across the Permian Basin, all producing, all built on blood. I felt sick. 60 years of murders, thousands of barrels of oil, billions of dollars of profit, all from sacrificing workers. Why hasn't anyone exposed this? Earl laughed. It was a bitter sound. Expose it to who? Apex owns half the politicians in Texas. The workers who survive are too scared to talk. The families who lose someone get paid off. And anyone who investigates too hard ends up dead themselves. You think you're the first lawman to come asking questions? What happened to the others? Earl didn't answer, just poured more whiskey. I left his porch with a new understanding. This wasn't a case I could solve. This was a conspiracy that went to the highest levels of Texas government and business. 1 Texas Ranger against an oil empire. But I had to try. That evening, I got a call at my motel. Unknown number. Ranger Morrison? The voice was female, professional, scared. My name is Dr. Ashley Larson. I'm a geologist with Apex. I need to meet with you. Tonight, alone. We met at a truck stop 20 miles outside Pecos. She was in her early 30s, PhD from MIT, been with Apex for 3 years, and she looked terrified. She handed me a folder. Inside were geological surveys, core samples, analysis reports. I've been studying the 8,547-foot depth for 2 years, she said, trying to understand what we're drilling into. The official explanation is a natural gas pocket, but that's a lie. What is it really? She pulled out a map, marked with dozens of red dots across West Texas. Every dot is an Apex well that's been drilled to exactly 8,547 feet. 237 wells, all connected. Connected how? Underground. There's a massive network of chambers at that depth, all linked, like a web spreading under the entire Permian Basin. And at the center is something alive, something intelligent. The thing Earl talked about. She nodded. I've analyzed samples from multiple wells. The material we're drilling into isn't rock, it's organic, biological, like drilling into living tissue. She showed me microscope images, what looked like cells, massive cells with structures that didn't match any known organism. It's been down there for geological ages, sealed, dormant, until we started drilling into it in 1941. And every time we drill, we wake it up. Feed it, keep it alive. Why would the company keep doing this? Dr. Larson pulled out financial reports. Look at the production numbers. Wells drilled to 8,547 feet produce 10 times more oil than normal wells. They never run dry. Standard wells deplete after 20 years. These wells have been producing since the 40s. Billions of dollars in pure profit. At the cost of human lives. 1 life per well. It's written into the drilling protocols, coded language. Expected personnel loss rates at depth threshold. They budget for it, account for it. It's just another line item in the cost of doing business. I stared at the documents. The cold calculation of murder. The systematic sacrifice of workers for profit. Why are you telling me this? I asked. You work for them. Because I can't live with it anymore. She was crying now. I thought I was working for an oil company. I didn't know I was working for murderers. Or something worse than murderers. Help me build a case. Testify. We can shut them down. She shook her head. You don't understand. It's not just Apex. Every major oil company drilling in the Permian Basin has hit this depth. Chevron, Exxon, Shell, they all know. They all have the same deal. They all feed it. Jesus Christ. It's the entire industry. The whole Texas economy is built on this. You can't expose it without destroying everything. I have to try. Dr. Larson looked at me with pity. 3 Texas Rangers have investigated Apex over the years. 2 died in car accidents. 1 committed suicide. Or, that's what the report said. Are you threatening me? I'm warning you. They will kill you. They've killed everyone who's gotten close to the truth. Then help me get evidence, real evidence. Something I can take to federal authorities. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, there's a chamber under the Delta 7 rig, accessible through the main drill shaft. I can get you down there, show you what we're drilling into, what we're feeding. When? Tomorrow night, after the shift change, fewer people around. I'll arrange access to the shaft. Why would you risk this? Because 13 men have died in 3 weeks. Because I helped them drill those wells. Because their blood is on my hands. She stood up. Tomorrow night, 11 p.m. Meet me at Delta 7. She left. I sat in the truck stop drinking bad coffee and looking at the documents she'd given me. 237 wells. At least 60 confirmed deaths. 40 years of systematic murder, and an entire industry complicit. I should have walked away. Should have called federal authorities and let them handle it. Should have protected myself. But those 13 men deserved justice. The 60 before them deserved justice. Every worker who'd died feeding something 3 miles underground deserved justice. So I decided to go down into the chamber. To see the thing that Apex had been feeding for 40 years. To get proof. The next day, I prepared. Wrote everything down. Made copies of all evidence. Sent 1 set to Rodriguez, another to a journalist I trusted, a third to a lawyer in Austin. If something happened to me, the story would get out. I also wrote a letter to my wife. Told her I loved her. Told her if she was reading this, it meant I'd died doing my job. Asked her to make sure the truth came out. Then I drove back to Delta 7. Dr. Larson was waiting at 11 p.m. She looked exhausted, scared, but determined. You're sure about this? She asked. I'm sure. She led me to the main drill shaft, a massive hole in the ground surrounded by equipment. The drill had been pulled up. The shaft was open, empty, going down 3 miles into the earth. We're going down there? She handed me a harness. There's a maintenance elevator, runs on cables, takes about 30 minutes to reach 8,547 feet. I've arranged for the overnight supervisor to look the other way. What happens when we get down there? We see the chamber, document it, get video evidence. Then we come back up and you arrest everyone responsible. Simple as that. She smiled sadly. Nothing about this is simple. We got into the elevator, a metal cage barely big enough for 2 people. Dr. Larson pressed a button and we started descending. Down into the earth. Down to 8,547 feet. Down to see what Apex Oil had been feeding for 40 years. The elevator descended slowly. Too slowly. Every foot down felt like a lifetime. The walls of the shaft were smooth, polished by decades of drilling, and in the light from our flashlights I could see marks, scratches, like something had clawed at the walls from the inside. "How deep are we?" I asked. Dr. Larson checked a gauge. 2,000 feet, another hour and a half to go. The temperature was rising. Down here the earth was hot, geothermal heat building with every 100 feet. Sweat soaked through my shirt. The metal cage was getting too hot to touch. At 4,000 feet, the elevator lurched, stopped. "What's happening?" I grabbed the cage walls. Dr. Larson hit the controls. "Nothing. We're stuck." She pulled out a radio, called up to the surface. No response, just static. "They cut the power," she said. Her voice was flat. "They know we're down here." Who knows? The company. They must have been watching, waiting to see if I'd actually do it. "Can we climb back up?" She looked at the shaft walls. Smooth rock and metal. 3/4 of a mile straight up. No handholds, no ladder. We're trapped. Then the elevator started moving again, but not up, down, faster than before. "Someone else is controlling it," Dr. Larson said. "They're sending us all the way down." To the chamber? To 8,547 feet, where the sacrifices happen. She looked at me. "I'm sorry. I thought I could help you. I thought I could make this right. But I just got us both killed." The descent accelerated. We dropped through 5,000 feet. 6,000, 7,000. The heat was unbearable now. The metal cage was burning my hands when I touched it. My lungs felt like they were breathing fire. At 8,000 feet, the walls changed. No longer smooth rock. Now they were organic. Rough. Textured. Like drilling through flesh instead of stone. Dr. Larson saw it too. "This is it. This is where the entity begins. Everything below 8,000 feet is part of it." Part of what? Whatever's down there. Whatever we've been drilling into for 40 years. 8,500 feet. The temperature dropped suddenly, from unbearable heat to freezing cold in seconds. Frost formed on the cage. Our breath came out in clouds. "That's not possible," Dr. Larson said. "We should be getting hotter the deeper we go, not colder." 8,547 feet. The elevator stopped. We were in a chamber, massive. So large our flashlight beams couldn't reach the walls. The elevator had opened into a space that shouldn't exist 3 miles underground. The floor was smooth, organic. It moved slightly under our feet. Breathing. The entire chamber was breathing. "Oh my God," Der Larson whispered. I shined my light around. The walls were covered in something, not rock, tissue. Veins running through it like rivers, pulsing, alive, and between the veins were shapes, human shapes, embedded in the walls, bodies, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, workers who died at 8,547 feet, all merged with the walls, all part of the entity now. Their eyes were open, following our lights. "They're still alive," Dr. Larson said. "Oh God, they're still alive." One of the bodies moved, just slightly. Its mouth opened. "Feed," it said. The voice came from everywhere. All the bodies speaking at once. "Feed us. We hunger. We have always hungered." "What are you?" I asked. "We are old. Older than your kind. Older than the sun. We came from the deep places, from the dark, and we were sealed here, imprisoned in stone, locked away by those who feared us. When? Before your civilizations, before your cities, before you learned to make fire. We were sealed at the dawn of your species, and we have been waiting, waiting for you to find us, to free us, to feed us." The 1941 well. We broke the seal? You drilled into our prison, released us, and we were so hungry, starved for ages. We needed sustenance, needed life, needed blood. Dr. Larson was shaking. The deal. Someone made a deal with you. The men who owned the drilling, the company men. They came down here, saw us, feared us. We offered them a trade, blood for oil. One life and we would fill their wells. Make them rich, make them powerful. They agreed? They were desperate. Their wells were failing. They needed success. So they agreed. 1 worker per well drilled to our depth. 1 sacrifice, and we would make sure the oil never stopped flowing for 40 years, for as long as they keep drilling, as long as they keep feeding us. We create the oil. We push it up through the earth. We make them wealthy beyond measure. And in exchange, we take what we need: blood, life, sustenance. You're killing innocent people. We are surviving. Just as your kind survives, just as you kill animals to eat, just as you destroy the earth to fuel your machines. We do what we must to live. This is murder. This is nature. This is hunger. This is the price of progress. I pulled my gun, pointed it at the nearest body in the wall. Your weapons are useless here, the voices said. We are not one being. We are many. We are the chamber itself. Kill 1 body and we have hundreds more. You cannot stop us. Then I'll expose you. I'll make sure everyone knows what Apex has been doing, what you are. The bodies laughed. A horrible sound. Hundreds of throats laughing at once. Many have tried, many have failed. The company owns your government, your police, your courts. They will bury the truth as they always have, and you will die as all investigators have died. Not this time. I turned to Dr. Larson. We need to get out of here, get back to the surface. She was staring at one of the bodies in the wall, recognition on her face. Michael? She whispered. Michael Larson? The body she was looking at moved slightly, turned its head toward her. Ashley, it said. Its voice was different from the others, more human, more aware. You shouldn't have come here. Michael was my brother, Dr. Larson said to me. Her voice was breaking. He died 6 months ago. Accident on an Apex rig. They said he fell into the drill shaft. He did fall, the Michael thing said. He was chosen, selected, fed to us, just as you will be fed, just as the ranger will be fed. No, Ashley said. She was crying now. Michael, no. Fight it. Come back. I'm not Michael anymore. I'm part of something greater, something eternal. And soon you will be too. The elevator behind us groaned, started rising, moving back up the shaft, leaving us stranded. Wait, I shouted. I grabbed for it, but it was already out of reach. The cage disappeared up the shaft. Gone. We were trapped. 3 miles underground, in a chamber with something that had been feeding on human lives for 40 years. This is how it always ends, the voices said. Investigators come, investigators see, investigators become part of us. You will not be the first, you will not be the last. I looked around desperately for another way out. Another shaft, another tunnel, anything. That's when I saw them, in the darker parts of the chamber, moving. Shapes that were almost human, but not quite. Things made from the bodies in the walls, amalgamations of flesh and bone and oil, walking toward us. The enforcers, Dr. Larson said. The company sends them down when someone needs to disappear. They're not human anymore. Just puppets. Just tools. We ran. Deeper into the chamber, away from the approaching things, our flashlights cutting through the darkness. The organic floor pulsing under our feet. You cannot run, the voices called after us. There is nowhere to go. The chamber has no exits, no escape. This is where you die. This is where you become part of us. We found a narrow passage, squeezed through. The walls were wet, slick with something that wasn't quite oil, something living. The veins in the walls pulsed faster. Excited, they're hurting us, Dr. Larson said. Driving us deeper. Deeper to what? To the heart, the center of the entity, where it's strongest, where it feeds. We have to fight our way back. Get to the elevator shaft somehow. Climb if we have to. Behind us, I heard footsteps. The enforcers getting closer, and they were fast. Faster than humans should be. We emerged into another chamber, smaller. At the center was a pool. Dark liquid, not oil. Blood mixed with something else, something ancient. And floating in the pool were fresh bodies. The 13 who'd died at Delta 7 in the last 3 weeks. Not decomposed, preserved, suspended, waiting to be absorbed. This is how it works, Dr. Larson said. The entity doesn't just kill, it consumes, takes the bodies, merges with them, adds them to itself. Every victim becomes part of the whole. Can we destroy it? She laughed. It was edged with hysteria. Destroy it? Morrison, it's massive. It extends under the entire Permian Basin. Thousands of square miles of living tissue 3 miles underground. You'd have to nuke the whole region to kill it. Then we expose it. Make sure everyone knows. How? We're about to die down here. No evidence will survive. I pulled out a small camera I'd hidden in my jacket. Been recording everything. Audio and video. If we can get this to the surface, the enforcers burst into the chamber. 3 of them. Things that had once been human but weren't anymore. Skin gray and slick with oil. Eyes empty. Mouths too wide. Moving wrong. They grabbed Dr. Larson, pulled her toward the pool. She screamed, fought, but they were too strong. "Ashley!" I yelled. I shot one of the enforcers. The bullet passed through it like it was hitting water. No effect. She looked at me, terrified. "Tell my story," she said. "Tell everyone what they did, what they're still doing." Then they pulled her under, into the blood pool. She disappeared beneath the surface, gone in seconds. I stood there, gun useless, camera in my hand, watching as the surface of the pool rippled and went still. The other 2 enforcers turned toward me. "Your turn," the voices said. "Your turn to feed us. Your turn to become part of something greater." They advanced. I backed away. There was nowhere to go, nowhere to run. This was it. This was how I died. 3 miles underground. Sacrificed to something that should never have been awakened. But I still had the camera, still had the evidence. I had to get it out somehow. The enforcers were 10 feet away when I made a decision. I wasn't going to die without fighting. Wasn't going to be another body in the pool, another name on the list of workers who'd disappeared, feeding something that should never have been awakened. I threw the camera as hard as I could, launched it into the darkness. Away from the pool, away from the enforcers, into the shadows of the chamber where maybe, just maybe, someone would find it someday. Where maybe the truth would survive even if I didn't. Then I charged, hit the first enforcer low, tackled it around what passed for its waist. We went down together. Its skin was cold and slick like grabbing a corpse pulled from water. Like touching something dead that refused to stay dead. It didn't bleed when I hit it. Didn't bruise. Just absorbed the impact and kept moving with that horrible mechanical efficiency. The other one grabbed me from behind, lifted me off my feet. Its grip was iron, inhuman strength. I fought, kicked, drove my elbow back into what should have been ribs. Felt nothing, no bones, no resistance, just yielding flesh that reformed immediately. They dragged me toward the pool. I grabbed the edge, held on with everything I had, my fingers digging into the organic floor. It was soft, yielding, warm. I could feel it pulse under my hands like a heartbeat, like the chamber itself was alive. "Let go," the voices commanded. All the bodies in the walls speaking at once. Hundreds of throats, hundreds of mouths, all saying the same words. "Accept your fate. Become part of us, part of something greater, part of something eternal. We will give you purpose. We will give you peace. We will give you eternity." "Never," I gasped. The word came out strangled, desperate. The enforcers pulled harder. My fingers slipped. The organic floor tore under my grip. Blood welling up. Not my blood, the entity's blood. Dark and thick and smelling like oil mixed with copper. And then I heard something. A sound that didn't belong 3 miles underground. A sound that gave me hope. Footsteps. Human footsteps. Running. Frank Hutchins burst into the chamber. The rig supervisor, 55 years old. Should have been at home with his wife, should have been anywhere but here. But he'd followed me down, brought supplies, risked his life. He was carrying a jerry can, gasoline, and a road flare. "Get away from him," Hutchins shouted. His voice echoed through the chamber. He threw the gasoline. It splashed across the enforcers, across the organic floor, across the pool where Dr. Larson had disappeared. The smell was overwhelming, cutting through the sulfur and rot. "You can't burn us," the voices said. There was amusement in them, confidence. "We are too vast, too deep, too old. Fire is nothing to us. We have survived ice ages and meteor strikes and the death of species. We will survive this." "Maybe not," Hutchins said. He pulled out the flare. "Maybe I can't kill you. Maybe you're too big to die, but I can hurt you. And I can buy this man enough time to escape." He struck the flare. It hissed to life. Brilliant red light filling the chamber. Then he threw it. The chamber erupted. Fire spread across the organic floor in a wave. The enforcers screamed, actually screamed, released me. Staggered back as flames engulfed them. They burned, flesh bubbling, melting. The things that had once been human reducing to ash and char. The entity screamed too. Through every mouth and every wall, a sound of pain and rage and something like fear. The whole chamber convulsing. Walls contracting, floor heaving. Hutchins grabbed my arm, pulled me to my feet. "Run. Now." There's a maintenance shaft 300 yards northeast. I marked it on the way down. If we can reach it, we can climb out. "What about you?" "I'm right behind you. Now move." We ran, back through the passage we'd come from, the entity screaming behind us, the whole chamber system convulsing, trying to seal us in, trying to crush us, trying to make sure we never left. The walls around us were moving, bulging, things pressing from the other side, more enforcers forming, more of the consumed trying to stop our escape. I could see faces in the walls, hands reaching out, bodies half emerged from the organic tissue. Hutchins still had gasoline. He splashed it as we ran, created a wall of fire behind us, buying time, buying distance. The flames caught and spread. The entity shrieking. "How did you know to bring gas?" I shouted over the noise. "Been planning this for weeks, ever since the deaths started. Knew eventually someone would need to go down there. Knew I might have to burn the whole thing." His voice was grim. Should have done it years ago, should have burned every well drilled to this depth. But I was a coward. Kept my head down. Kept quiet. Let good men die. You're here now, that's what matters. We reached a junction, 4 passages leading in different directions. The walls were closing in, narrowing, trying to seal off our escape routes. "Which way?" I asked. Hutchins pointed left. "That way," I marked it. "Look for the red paint." I saw it, a splash of red on the organic wall. Crude arrow pointing the direction. We followed it. The passage narrowed further. We had to squeeze through. The walls pressing against us. Wet, warm, breathing. The tissue contracting around us, trying to hold us, trying to digest us. "You're too late," the voices said. They were everywhere now, in the walls, in the air, in my head. "The company knows you're here. They're sealing the maintenance shaft, welding it shut. You'll die down here with us. You'll become part of the collection, part of eternity." "Keep moving," Hutchins said. "Don't listen to it. It's trying to break you." We squeezed through a particularly narrow section, the walls so tight I could barely breathe. Then we emerged into another chamber, smaller than the first, maybe 50 feet across, and there was the maintenance shaft, a vertical tunnel leading up, metal rungs set into the walls, 3 miles of climbing, 3 miles to the surface, to air, to freedom. But there were men at the top, silhouettes against the distant light, company men. I could hear the sound of welding, sparks falling down the shaft like rain. "They're cutting us off," I said. Hutchins pulled out his radio. Keyed the emergency frequency. His voice was steady. Professional. "This is Frank Hutchins at Delta 7 Rig. I have Texas Ranger Jake Morrison with me. We're 3 miles underground. Apex Oil is attempting to kill us. We have evidence of systematic murder. 60 workers over 40 years. All sacrificed to something living at 8,547 feet. If anyone can hear this, we need immediate assistance. Static, long seconds of nothing but white noise. Then a voice. Familiar, strong. Captain Rodriguez. Morrison? Is that you? Captain, yeah. Relief flooded through me. We're trapped. Apex is sealing the shaft. We have evidence. Documentary proof. Witnesses. You need to get federal authorities here now. Already done. Rodriguez's voice was tight. We've been listening to your investigation. You were smart sending those evidence packets. The FBI's en route. So is the press. CNN, CBS, they're all coming. Apex made a mistake cutting your communication. Made it look like a cover-up, made it news. The men above stopped welding, pulled back. I could hear shouting, commotion. New lights appearing, brighter, more of them. "They're here," Rodriguez said. Federal agents. News cameras. Apex can't touch you now. Too many witnesses. "We're coming up," I said. The entity screamed, not through the bodies in the walls this time. Through the rock itself. Through the earth. A sound so loud and deep it shook the chamber. Made the rungs vibrate. Made my bones ache. "If we cannot have you as sacrifice," the voices said, "we will have you as witness. You will tell them what you saw here, and they will not believe you. They will call you mad. They will discredit you. And the company will continue drilling, continue feeding us, because they cannot stop. Because stopping would mean admitting guilt, and the truth would destroy them all." The walls began to collapse. Not slowly, not gradually, suddenly, catastrophically. The chamber filling with debris. The entity destroying itself. Burying the evidence. Making sure nothing remained but our testimony. "Climb!" Hutchins shouted. "Now! Go!" We grabbed the rungs and climbed, hand over hand, foot over foot. The chamber collapsing below us. Fire and screaming and the terrible sound of something ancient dying, or pretending to die. My arms burned, my lungs screamed for air, but I kept climbing. One rung, then another, then another. The shaft seemed endless. 3 miles of vertical climbing. Impossible. Insane. But we climbed. Hutchins was below me. older, slower, his breathing labored. But he kept pace, kept climbing, kept fighting. At 1 mile up, my hands were bleeding, the metal rungs slick with my blood, my muscles screaming, my vision blurring. "Keep going," Hutchins gasped from below. "Don't stop, don't look down." The shaft began to close, the organic walls squeezing, trying to crush us, trying to seal us in. The entity wasn't dead, wasn't dying, just angry, just hungry. "Faster," Hutchins yelled. "It's closing, we have to move faster." I climbed faster, pushed through the pain, through the exhaustion, through the terror, the walls squeezing tighter, tighter. Soon there wouldn't be room to move. At 2 miles up, Hutchins started falling behind. His breathing was wrong, ragged, desperate. "Frank," I called down, "stay with me, I'm trying." His voice was weak. "Morrison, listen, if I don't make it, you're making it. We both are." The walls squeezed tighter. Hutchins was stuck. Couldn't move, the entity holding him, crushing him. "Go," he yelled. His voice was stronger now. Determined. "Don't wait for me. One of us has to make it. One of us has to tell the truth. I'm not leaving you. You have to." He was struggling to breathe. The walls crushing his chest. Someone has to expose them. Someone has to make them stop drilling. "That's you, Morrison. That's your job. Frank, tell my wife I tried to do the right thing. Tell her I'm sorry I didn't do it sooner." The walls squeezed tighter. I could hear bones breaking. Hutchins gasped in pain. "Go," he managed. "Tell them, tell everyone. Make them stop." He reached up, grabbed my boot, pushed, launched me upward, used the last of his strength to send me higher. Then he let go, just released his grip and fell. Back down into the collapsing chamber, into the fire and the screaming and the dying entity, into the darkness. Sacrificing himself so I could escape. "No," I screamed, "no." But he was gone, falling, disappearing into the depths. I climbed, tears streaming down my face, arms shaking, hands bleeding, climbing for both of us, for all of them. For Dr. Larson and Frank Hutchins and the 60 workers whose names were in my files. The walls kept closing, tighter, tighter. Soon I was squeezing through gaps barely wide enough for my body, the organic tissue pressing against me, breathing on me, trying to hold me. "You cannot escape us," the voices said. "We are everywhere. We are the earth itself. We are what you drill into. We are what you consume. We are the price of progress." I kept climbing. At 1/2 mile from the surface, the walls stopped closing. The entity exhausted, or satisfied, or just waiting. My hands reached the top, broke through into open air, into the desert night, into flashlights and cameras and FBI agents pulling me up, into oxygen and sky and freedom. I collapsed on the ground, gasping, burned, bleeding, alive, but alone. Cameras everywhere, questions shouted, lights in my face. So many people, press, federal agents, company lawyers, Apex executives. What happened down there? A reporter shoved a microphone in my face. "What did you find?" I tried to speak, tried to explain, but the words wouldn't come. How do you explain something impossible? How do you make people believe in something that sounds like insanity? "There's something down there," I finally managed. My voice was hoarse, broken, something alive, something the company's been feeding for 40 years. 60 workers, all murdered, all sacrificed, all to keep the oil flowing. The FBI agent, a man named Watkins, crouched next to me, helped me sit up. "We're investigating. We have warrants for every Apex executive. Search warrants for every document. The company's operations are being frozen. Whatever happened here, it stops now." But I could see the Apex lawyers already. already on phones, already calling politicians, already activating their network of protection and power. It wasn't over. Over the next week, I gave testimony, hours of it, days of it, to the FBI, to state prosecutors, to federal grand juries. I showed them the evidence Dr. Larson had compiled, the geological surveys, the financial documents, the patterns. I told them about Earl Cooper, about the 1941 deal, about the 237 wells drilled to exactly 8,547 feet. I told them about the chamber, the organic walls, the bodies merged with the tissue, the entity that had been sealed underground for ages and awakened by drilling. They listened, took notes, recorded everything. But I could see it in their eyes. They didn't believe me. The FBI sent teams down the drill shaft, with cameras, with instruments, with protective gear. They reached 8,547 feet, found the chamber, or what was left of it, collapsed rock, geological anomaly, natural cave system that had been destabilized by drilling, no organic tissue, no bodies and walls, no blood pool, no entity. It had destroyed itself, buried all physical evidence, left nothing but my testimony and the testimony of a dead rig supervisor and a dead geologist. And without physical proof, testimony was worthless. The company executives lawyered up immediately, denied everything, claimed the deaths were industrial accidents. Tragic but unavoidable and dangerous work. Claimed safety protocols had been followed. Claimed OSHA had cleared them repeatedly. They claimed I'd suffered a mental breakdown from the stress and heat, that I'd hallucinated in the depths, that I'd been fed conspiracy theories by Dr. Larson, who they painted as an unstable employee with a grudge against the company. The camera I'd thrown into the darkness was never found. The bodies I'd seen in the walls never recovered. The entity left no trace. Earl Cooper had died the day after I interviewed him. Heart attack, the death certificate said. Natural causes. His testimony died with him. Frank Hutchins' body was never recovered. Listed as missing, presumed dead in industrial accident during unauthorized descent into drill shaft. His widow received a settlement, signed a non-disclosure agreement, never spoke publicly. Dr. Ashley Larson was listed as missing. No body recovered. Her family received compensation, also signed NDAs, also silent. The case fell apart. Federal prosecutors reviewed the evidence and found it insufficient. No physical proof, no living witnesses besides me. No way to prove the deaths were anything but accidents. Apex paid fines, millions of dollars, for safety violations, for inadequate protocols, for failure to properly train workers. But no criminal charges, no admissions of guilt, no acknowledgement that anything supernatural or conspiratorial had occurred. The wells kept pumping. 3 months after Delta 7, I resigned from the Texas Rangers. Couldn't keep working in a system that let this happen, that protected murderers because they were rich and powerful, that valued oil over human lives. I tried to move on, tried to forget, tried to convince myself I'd done everything I could, but I couldn't, because I knew the truth, knew what was down there, knew that even with the Delta 7 site collapsed, there were 236 other wells drilled to 8,547 feet. 236 other connection points to the entity, and the company was still drilling, still exploring, still pushing deeper, still feeding it. I started collecting evidence again, privately, obsessively, death certificates from across Texas, from across the country, from everywhere major oil companies drilled, and I found the pattern everywhere. Not just at 8,547 feet. Different depths, different formations, but always the same pattern. Deaths clustered around specific depths. 1 or 2 per well, always ruled accidental. Exxon, Chevron, Shell, BP, ConocoPhillips. Every major oil company, all with similar patterns, all with deaths at consistent depths, all covering it up. They'd all found something, all made deals, all been feeding things that should have stayed buried, because the oil was too profitable to stop, because the truth was too dangerous to expose, because some prices are worth paying if you're not the one being sacrificed. I'm writing this in 1983, 1 year after the Delta 7 incident. The story never made sustained national news. Brief coverage. Then buried. The deaths were a footnote. The investigation was closed. Apex Oil is still operating, still drilling, still producing billions of barrels of oil, and workers are still dying. 1 per well, 1 per month, 120 per decade. I track them, keep files, build databases, every death certificate, every accident report, every pattern I can find. No one cares, no one listens. I'm the crazy ex-ranger who had a breakdown in a drill shaft, who imagined monsters underground, who couldn't accept that sometimes accidents are just accidents. But I know the truth, and I'll keep collecting evidence, keep building the case, keep hoping that someday someone will listen, that someday the drilling will stop, that someday we'll stop feeding the things we've awakened. But I know it won't happen, because we're addicted to oil, to progress, to consumption, and addiction always demands sacrifice. The entity knows this, counted on it, made a deal it knew we'd never break, because we're not so different from it. We're both hungry, we're both consuming, we're both willing to sacrifice others to survive. The only difference is the entity doesn't pretend to be anything else, and we do. The wells keep pumping, the workers keep dying, the sacrifice continues at 8,547 feet. And every other depth where we've drilled into something we shouldn't have, where something old and hungry waits, where it's always been waiting, where it will always wait, forever fed by our greed, forever growing on our blood, forever.